currently, I want you to come to River Pointe Church with their new series, Toe to Toe.
All right. Well, hi there. My name is Bergstrom. I'm a teaching pastor here, and man, I love this church. I love that you guys are going toe to toe. That's going to be an amazing series. I'm excited about that. And I just want to tell you, man, I want to welcome everybody here. I'm glad that you came here at Richmond. I want to welcome everybody that's at Missouri City. I love that you have an amazing pastor named Scott Denton. Get to know that guy. He wants to help you get plugged in. And I also want to welcome all of our online listeners. Thank you so much for being a part of all that God's doing here. And I want you to continue to pray for West End because God's doing amazing things at every campus here. And I love being a part of it, and I hope that you do too. All right, so we're in a series right now that's called 1 Samuel. This is the very last week of this series. And this book, man, it's been an amazing study. I hope that you have enjoyed it. It's been a great reminder for me that this book it stays relevant. It has so many amazing things that come out of it about love, about comedy, about drama, about wisdom, enough so that it keeps us coming back our entire lives to learn from it new and afresh every single day. And you'd think that a document that's like, 1,000 years old and written by people all over the world would be irrelevant and not worth a thing to us. But man, it is. It's so alive and it's living and breathing and active. And I just love the scriptures. And I hope my prayer is that you really have dove into the Bible and you found it to speak to you, and that you found God in that pursuit, and that you really have studied this passage because, man, there's so much more stuff that Patrick and I were not able to unpackage that is so good. So I just want to tell you, you still have permission. It's not too late. So go in and study 1 Samuel. It's a great study, okay? So if you have your Bibles, let's dive in together. 1 Samuel chapter 24, and we're going to be studying that in just a little bit. But first, I want you to do me a favor. Turn to the person beside you, and I want you to say this passionately. Say, don't hate. Go ahead. Say, don't hate. Go ahead. Yeah, don't hate. Have you ever been hurt by somebody so bad that all you have is time, and you just think about the pain that they caused you? Like maybe something was said to you or done to you, and it's caused you this real feelings of abuse, and you feel so mistreated, and maybe it's even caused you to stay up at night, and you've contemplated ways to get payback, or maybe you've thought about how to have this in your life and to get some revenge. Well, man, I think all of us have had a time where we've battled wanting to have revenge, and it's like this subtle temptation for all of us at one point in our life to want to get even. And so I want to talk about that, and I want to just maybe have you think about in your life, maybe for you it was an employer, and you were why can't they see me? Why don't they appreciate my efforts? Or maybe it was a parent, and you just feel man, they failed you, or they just didn't live up to your expectations, or they hurt you as well. Maybe it was a friend that backed out on you when you needed him the most. There's all kinds of ways that we get hurt and we want payback, we want revenge. And most of our culture, if you think about it, it doesn't recognize that it's actually revenge. It's called my rights. Or we look at it by saying it's justified retaliation. We say, man, we've got a moral obligation to rectify this situation. That's the American way, right? We also say things like, I don't get mad, go ahead and finish. I just get even. That's right. And so whatever we call it, God calls it revenge. And his feelings toward personal vengeance, they aren't good. But it's natural for every one of us in our lives to have feelings like this. So how do we resist wanting to seek revenge? How do we keep from allowing hatred to destroy our lives, especially when feelings like that can be all-consuming? It can take over us, right? So last week, I'm just going to let that question sit out there for a while. Last week, we really dove into the story of David and Goliath, him fighting the mighty giant, right? And that was in chapter 17. Well, the very next chapter, chapter 18, it's like all of Israel is going crazy. and they're like going nuts over this guy David now. And everybody's like hoorah, screaming, shouting, David, 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 right? And so this made Saul like stupid jealous. And he's like, just, it's starting to turn into resentment. And this is where he begins to really hate David. As my girls would say, he started throwing some shade. Or maybe you'd say, you know what, haters are gonna hate, as T. Swizzle would say. And so that's what's going on. Understand something. So here's where we're at in this story of Samuel. The purpose of this book, the reason why it was written, was so that the Israelites, God's chosen people, they had made this decision to go from having a spokesperson, a messenger, or what was called a prophet, to insisting on having a king instead. Pastor Kelly did a great job unpackaging this in the second week of this series. And he really helped us understand that all the surrounding nations, they all had a king. And we wanted to be like them. And we wanted to move from what was called a theocracy, where God's in charge, to a monarchy, where a man is in charge. So up until now, thousands of years have gone by. God's been the leader of the Israelites, and it's, I will be your God, you will be my people. And they were together all of the time. And now the people of Israel are going, you know what, man? We just want to conform and be like everybody else and place a man over us to be our king. So Samuel was the prophet at the time, and he's the one left in charge to change this entire system and anoint a new king. So he eventually made this decision, and this is when it happened. Saul became Israel's very first king. Are you guys tracking with me? So this has never happened before. Okay, this is like brand new thought. Saul didn't know what he was doing, nor did he have anybody to even ask how to do it, because nobody's done this job. He was like a common boy from the Benjamite tribe, and you know what? He started out doing great. He was on fire. Like, he was tall, dark, and handsome, and he's charismatic. He's a strong leader. He was the buzz in all of Israel. He's like the snizzle my dizzle. Okay, he's like, everybody's into Saul, and every tribe all around Israel is talking about this one guy, Saul. But after David won against Goliath, after that happened, everything changed. From Saul's perspective, David, man, he's just taking all the glory now, right? This little nobody shepherd boy from Bethlehem, the son of Jesse, he's weaseled his way into my life, and he's now sitting at my table. Not only that, he married my daughter Michael. And not only that, my son Jonathan is now his best friend. And so he's like everywhere in Saul's life now. And so Saul's going, who is this leech that's around here all the time, right? And so Jonathan is the rightful heir to the throne, and now David's like his best friend. And so Saul starts, man, he starts getting insanely jealous, which made him start getting really weird and doing crazy stuff, right? To the point that Saul wanted David dead. With all of his heart, he wanted David dead. And at first, he was just like putting him at the front line of the battlefield, right? And like he was going to like have him like be a casualty of war. But when David continually came back after that battle and was the conquering hero, and everybody's like, wow, you should have seen David again. Like, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse, right? So all the while, here's what's crazy. David loved Saul. That's what's weird. Like, he really loved, he looked up to him. He wasn't just his king. Like, it was now his father-in-law, right? So it's his dad. He would have given his very life for Saul. David was loyal. And you know what? His allegiance was for Saul and for the king. He would, so much so, he would sit and like play the harp for Saul. They would just sit there and play the harp and sing. And what's crazy is on 3 different occasions, Saul, while he's playing the harp, takes a spear and like launches it at him. And that's jacked up. Like, you thought you have it bad with your in-laws. I don't like it when people throw spears at me. We pass the mashed potatoes and Thanksgiving, and no, Dad, don't throw spears at me. So that's what's going on. Saul's bitterness just got worse and worse. He loathed David, all he did was lay in bed and devise evil plans to kill him, which turned even into like his own family having massive dissension. His daughter, Michal, was picking Team David, right? And even though he had asked David to marry his daughter, now he takes Michal away from David and has her marry another man. What the heck? Like, I've had problems with my father-in-law, but he's never given my wife to another man. And so that's what's going on. Like, not only that, but he got so mad at Jonathan because Jonathan was helping plot with David and helping him escape and all these things. And so Saul threatens his own son's life, tries to kill Jonathan. So like his whole family's falling apart because of this bitterness and this hatred and this anger that's like way down deep inside of Saul. Saul's like he's like dancing in crazy town, okay? So David eventually, he became a fugitive and he ran from the temple, he ran from the throne, and he's out in the desert. And you know what? He's there for like 8 years. Imagine this, right? So he's on the run and he's like fighting for his life, jumping in caves. He has a few outlaws and men that's with him, and he's like, man, this is awful that I've lost everything that I have. And so David now is like this one guy that's on this side of the camp, and there's another guy named Saul that's on this side of the camp, and the kingdom itself, Israel, is picking sides. And so people are choosing which leader that they want to follow. And so, man, it caused a civil war. It's such a sad story. It could have been so different. Saul was king for 40 years, and 15 of those years, he like had this unnecessary bitterness and hatred, which eventually led to his demise. And so Saul, he could have set David up for success. He could have honored him. He could have prepared him to be his successor and set him up to be king. And his legacy could have been amazing as Jonathan and David, his two sons, sat on the throne and they ruled the kingdom together. But that's not the way it went. It did not go that way. In fact, everything just went wrong. But David, what's crazy is he never did anything wrong against Saul. He was a man after God's own heart. He just wanted to honor Saul the whole time, and yet he's hunted down like a criminal and an animal by Saul and all of his troops. And everything, here's what's crazy, everything David touched, man, it just turned to gold because of God's sovereign hand that was on his life. And people, man, they were just going nuts about David. They even wrote a song about the tension between David and Saul. Check out this song. This was their song. Saul has killed his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And this made Saul very angry. I'm sure David's like, don't sing that. Let's bring that down. This made David very angry. They credit David with 10,000 and me with only thousands. And next, they'll be making him their king. Another version says, he'll have the kingdom. So from that time on, Saul kept, will you say this? A jealous eye on David. And so that's where we're at in this amazing account, this historical account. It's a beautiful story of God. And so what's going on here is that there's this guy Saul that's scared to death. He's holding on, gripping for dear life, that he's going to lose his kingdom and no longer be the king. He's scared to death. He's going to lose his position and his power, and that caused his pride to erode his influence and his authority. So Saul starts to actually think, man, the kingdom of Israel, it's really my kingdom. And instead of making decisions, consulting the heart of God, he's living and leading from a place of fear, and that led him to making up conspiracies and suspicious of all the people around him. And he was scared to death. Who's working against him? Who's trying to take the throne? And that's sort of where he's living from. And so I want to share with you in 1 Samuel 24 how God really humbled Saul. So if you would, verse 1, here's what it says. After Saul returned from fighting the Philistines, he was told that David had gone into the wilderness of En-Gedi. So Saul chose 3,000 elite troops from all of Israel and went to search for David and his men near the rocks of the wild goats. At the place where the road passes some sheepfolds, Saul went into a cave to relieve himself. But as it happened, David and his men were hiding farther back in that very cave. Now's your opportunity, David's men whispered to him. Today, the Lord is telling you, I will certainly put your enemy into your power to do with as you wish. So David crept forward and he cut off a piece of the hem of Saul's robe. I just love the Bible. This is so great. I'm just way too immature for this story. So Saul goes in the cave to go to the bathroom. Nature calls. And did you know this is in the Bible? It's so good. Saul was about as vulnerable as you can possibly get. And there he was, like right in front of David in all of his glory. And he's like, wow, this is amazing. Here he is, all these years, right? I've felt this before. I don't know if you've ever felt this, but one time I was with my wife in Frisco, Colorado, and we were shopping, and it was like an amazing day. We were giddy. We were having a blast. We come to go to the bathroom. We both have to go really bad. Both the men and the women were taken, and we were like, well, check it out. There's a family one. Let's go in there. We didn't have kids with us, but we were like, we're married. It's cool. So we go into the family room. There's 2 toilets there, one little child one and one adult one. And so I said, hey, Allie, you know what? I'm a godly man. You have the adult one. I'll take the little child one. Well, she is lickety split out the door. And my sweet wife, she didn't lock the door. I'm glad you think that's funny. And so there I was on the little kid's toilet by myself. And in walks this blonde-headed, beautiful woman with a red shirt on. And we lock eyes, and we look at each other. And I had no idea what to say, and she had her little child with her. And I just said, I'm sorry. It was awful. I was so vulnerable. I've never been more vulnerable in my life. And I have real revenge problems that I have towards my wife. And we'll talk about that on another day. And so I don't know if you've ever felt vulnerable like that. That's where I was. And that's exactly where Saul is. And after all these years, here's Saul in the cave. David's there. And he's going, what? See, it would have been so natural for David to really man, this is it. I can finally have vengeance. I could finally have revenge. Understand, everything that was precious to him had been stripped away by this man. His wife, his best friend, his prominent position at the king's table. He couldn't be with his family anymore. He hadn't seen them for years because he's always running for his life, constantly escaping death and being chased by his dad, by his father-in-law. Everything was gone. He had nothing to lean on except God. Maybe that's where you are today. Maybe in your life you're just like, all I have is God now. Everything else is gone. And maybe for you, the divorce really took everything. Maybe for you online or at Missouri City, you lost your job and now you have no idea where to pick up the pieces. Maybe a diagnosis came and it's rocked your whole family and you don't know how to process it or where to even make sense of life anymore. Maybe you've lost someone, and maybe it was a parent or a child, and you're trying to put the pieces of your life back together, and you're looking up to God, and you're saying, why and how, God, can this possibly be part of your plan, and how did you allow this to happen to me? I'm not going to pretend to understand your pain or insult you by giving you some cheap answer as to why it happened. But the longer that I'm here on planet Earth, the more that I realize that God never wastes pain. He doesn't waste our pain in our life. And I've seen this over and over in my own life, in my own children's life, in my church's life. Everyone I know, I've seen this play itself out. When we go through enormous pain, oftentimes, God's doing something bigger than we even know. David, he had to go through the valley of the shadow of death in this season of his life in order to become the man that God was preparing him to become. It could be said that pain was preparing him for a prominent position. A little shepherd boy was being groomed to become the king. And what if all that David experienced was to help him see that I need to find my value and my worth and my identity from God alone. Maybe all of this happened because he just had to realize all the voices and all the people in my life that are saying good things or maybe saying bad things, it just doesn't matter. And I think each of us need to realize something, that God never promised that devotion to him is some magical potion that will exempt us from suffering. That's just not the case. David's guys, they're like, man, bro, what in the what? There he is. Okay, now's your chance. Do you want to take him or you want me to take him? Because I'll be glad to do it, boss. Surely this is God. He's delivered him into your hands. Come on, David. Now's your chance. He's got it coming. Let's kill him. Have you ever heard like a well-meaning person like try to give you advice that was just like so off? It was so wrong. And you just look at him like, you're an idiot. Like people will say things like, God must be opening that door. It's clearly, you got to go through that. And they don't know where you're at. Or maybe it's somebody like them who's saying, the Lord is telling you right now, kill that man. And oftentimes, God gets blamed for things that he has nothing to do with. Listen, no door opens from God if it goes against his revealed will in the scriptures, right? David would have known that in Leviticus, it says, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against a fellow Israelite, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. He would have known that. And what these men were attributing to God, God never said. God said the opposite, in fact. So David doesn't do what they say, and in fact, he keeps them at bay and doesn't allow them to harm Saul. And then what happens next is like really impressive. So I have a man to illustrate. Could you come on out? This is King Saul, and his name is Caleb. And I don't think King Saul would have worn shorts, but man, you look great. And so I need you to imagine this. You're kind of in the cave, right? And you're going to the bathroom. You don't have to do that, but King David, like, keeps 600 men in these crags of this cave right along the Dead Sea. He holds them all at bay, and somehow, I don't know if you've ever been in a cave, but they're like loud. You hear everything, every drip, every sound. But somehow, one version says that stealthily, David creeps up behind him, right? So sneaks up behind Saul. And then, I don't know if he had like a little bitty dagger, because I don't know how this would have worked. But he walks up behind him and he cuts off the hem of his, and so he's like trying to get in there. I actually did that. or then maybe it was his sword. And he's like, I got this, man. I'm going to cut it off. Right? And so he takes his sword or a dagger. I don't know what it was, but he probably should have just had some scissors. And so that would have been a lot easier. And he sneaks up, he takes it, he cuts it. I don't know if Saul's like tinkling, and that's why it's really loud, or if there's 3,000 of his soldiers that are outside. Maybe that's why he couldn't hear, but somehow he comes up, cuts some of the hem of his, and then sneaks out, right? And he's like, how? He did it. He's like, God is like, what's up now, sucker? Hey, give this guy a hand. Good job, King. So this scene would have been amazing. He's stealthy like a cat. Just sneaks up and takes off a piece of the hem of Saul's garment, right? David had him, and yet you know what he did? He demonstrated grace. He had revenge in his hands. It was right there. He could taste it. and he gave grace. His men might say, that was so weak. But God would probably tell you that this was one of the mightiest moments of David's life. Now, I think David knew that if he killed him, he would eventually become him. During a season where there's so much hatred in this world, our law enforcement and our armed forces, they're scared for their lives. There's more racial tension than I remember in my lifetime. There's like real anarchy and rebellion and tyranny all around. Like everywhere I look, I see that. And I just have to say, for what? For what? What are we proving by hurting each other? You never fix your problem by hurting someone else. Can I just say something to you? You're lying to yourself if you think you can fix yourself by hurting someone else. Hate never fixes hate. It only breeds more hate. Martin Luther said it like this: I've decided to stick with love. Hate's too heavy of a burden to bear. He also said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And we somehow forget this, that we are charged as Christians and followers of Jesus to give love. Like that's the deal. Loving him and loving his people, right? And that's what David demonstrates here. He could have done an act of hate, but instead he chose an act of love. David doesn't only spare his life, he started to feel very convicted from even cutting the rope. He could have killed him, but he didn't, and now God won't leave him alone, and so he risks his life. You got to see this. He risks his life by telling on himself. He goes out of the cave and he's like rats on himself. And he gives this brilliant speech to Saul, and you won't believe what happens. Check this out. But then David's conscience began bothering him because he had cut Saul's robe. The Lord knows I shouldn't have done that to my lord the king, he said to his men. The Lord forbid that I should do this to my lord the king and attack the Lord's anointed one, for the Lord himself has chosen him. So David restrained his men and did not let them kill Saul. And after Saul had left the cave and gone on his way, David came out and shouted after him, my lord the king. And when Saul looked around, David bowed low before him. And then he shouted out to Saul, why do you listen to the people who say I'm trying to harm you? This very day, you can see with your own eyes, it isn't true. For the Lord placed you at my mercy back in the cave. And some of my men told me to kill you, but I spared you, for I said, I will never harm the king. He is the Lord's anointed one. Look, my father, at what I have in my hand. It's a piece of the hem of your robe. And so, he's like, that's mine? What the? I cut it off, but I didn't kill you. This proves that I am not trying to harm you and that I have not sinned against you, even though you have been hunting me to kill me. May the Lord judge between us. Perhaps the Lord will punish you for what you're trying to do to me, but I will never harm you. As that old proverb says, from evil people come evil deeds, so you can be sure I will never harm you. Who is the king of Israel trying to catch anyway? Me? Should he spend his time chasing one who is as worthless as a dead dog or a single flea? May the Lord therefore judge which of us is right and punish the guilty one. He's my advocate, and he will rescue me from your power. When David had finished speaking, Saul called back. Is that really you, my son David? He calls him his son. And then he began to cry. And he said to David, this is unbelievable that he speaks this. You just don't understand how much tension there is. It's so charged. 3,000 men are in the background. 600 men are in the cave. And they're all there for these two guys. And he says, you're a better man than I am. For you have repaid me good for evil. Yes, you've been amazingly kind to me today. For when the Lord put me in a place where you could have killed me, you didn't do it. Who else would let this enemy get away when he had him in his power? May the Lord reward you well for the kindness you've shown me today. And now I realize that you are surely going to be king. What? And that the kingdom of Israel will flourish under your rule. Now swear to me by the Lord that when that happens, you will not kill my family and destroy my line of descendants. So David promised this to Saul with an oath. And then Saul went home, but David and his men went back into their stronghold, the cave. Wow. 8 years. He's been on the run. And for Saul to come to this sort of realization and like to see David, this scene is so beautiful. It's really unbelievable that David would turn to his army and say, boys, let's go home. He was about 30 miles away. It was a long walk back with the whole army with him, and they're not coming back with David. They were 4-1. They were outnumbered. They were in a cave. They had them, and he totally could have made this happen. But instead, David, he comes out, and he is vulnerable. And Saul says, you're a better man than me, and you know what? You're going to be a better king. They both forgave each other, and that day they were both set free. How did that happen? It was a miracle that happened. Can I just say that this is a beautiful story about vulnerability? First of all, Saul was vulnerable, right? But then David, the beautiful part is he risks his life, becomes vulnerable, cuts off the hem. But the most vulnerable part was when David comes out and he speaks from the heart. And he shares really honestly and openly about the hardest thing that's really going on. He's wanting to step into the conflict and deal with the real issues appropriately. Instead of blowing up and allowing anger and resentment to win, he steps out from the cave and he makes himself utterly naked and vulnerable. Brene Brown says this about vulnerability. Vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weakness. You could say last week when I spoke about insane courage and David defeated the mighty foe, Goliath, that was an amazing feat. But I would tell you that maybe this was much more courageous, to step out in vulnerability and talk about love and talk about their relationship and talk about how they were going to fix it and how they were going to deal with healing each other. See, God knows what's best for us. And it feels right sometimes to retaliate and to yell and to get angry and to have revenge, right? It's easy to be explosive and allow yourself to be out of control. But can I just tell you something? We need to admit that when we get even, we really don't win. We don't win. Getting even isn't ever even. We really only hurt ourselves. It just festers and it poisons our spirits. And when we hold grudges and we take revenge, we become no better than those who hurt us. Rick Warren, he said, if you don't release those who hurt you, you'll begin to resemble them. See, we become the hurter instead of becoming the healer. And I sometimes wish, I got to tell you, I'll be honest, I wish sometimes that the Bible said, do it unto others before they do it unto you. But it doesn't say that. It says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's very different. And so you ultimately have two choices. You have two choices. One of them is to forgive and forget. That's the one choice. But the second choice is to revenge and regret. You're either going to forgive and forget, or you're going to revenge and regret. Now, I'd like to unpackage forget. We don't really forget, do we? I don't know how God does that. He wipes his sins from the east to the west, and they're like wiped and you're pure as snow. But I'm not God, and I remember stuff. And if you punch me in the face, the next time you go to punch me, I'm going to remember and I'm going to block that. right? We don't really forget. And so when I say forget, we don't mean that it's gone. It means that you don't allow the pain to have power over your heart anymore. It doesn't stick to you. It means that when they try to hurt you again, it no longer has power. You guys understand that? Forgetting helps you get rid of the bitterness. Ephesians 4, I just might remind you that it says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Instead, be kind to each other, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God, through Christ, has forgiven you. A small little dose of hatred and bitterness, it creates all kinds of nasty stuff in your heart. And things start to grow and have mold. Things like, that really smell in your pantry. That's what it's like when you have bitterness and hatred. And you can't figure out what the smell is, and it's like driving you bananas. What's going on in my kitchen? And it's like the rotten red potato that fell behind. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's like worse than rotten eggs, and you can't think of anything else until you get this stupid thing out of your house. But once you finally find the source, and you remove the small little thing that is in your life that's making your entire life stink. Some of you need to do that today. Maybe online or someone at Missouri City. It's time for you to deal with what's going on in your heart. And the bitterness and the anger and the revenge and the hatred. All that needs to be gone. And it's a lot easier than you might think. You might think, man, Blake, you don't understand. You have no idea how big and unsurmountable, and I can't fix this problem. And I just want to tell you that's a lie from the enemy. Maybe today you're thinking, man, my situation is hopeless. But can I just tell you that God can change everything in your life in a moment? And maybe today you need to leave this place and you need to go make a phone call. Or maybe you need to drive over to someone's house and you need to ask for forgiveness. Or maybe you need to forgive someone. Maybe today some of you need to build up the courage to be vulnerable with your spouse or with one of your kids and go into the cave and speak your heart. Maybe today a miracle will happen and you can reconcile with the person that you're holding a grudge against, and both of you can be set free. I believe with all my heart that this word, the scriptures that God's given us, still changes lives. And the church is the greatest vehicle that God uses to bring about transformation. And maybe some of you didn't know that Jesus really can set you free. And maybe you didn't know that God forgave you of your sins and you're completely washed pure and holy. Maybe today you'd say, Blake, I want that Jesus in my life, and I'm ready to commit to him, and I'm ready to be baptized. If that's you, would you just, everybody in the room, would you bow your heads with me? And I want to just say a prayer and give people an opportunity to follow along and say this prayer with me to yourself. Just say this: Father God, please forgive me. I ask you to wash me clean. I pray, Lord, that you'd make me brand new. I pray, Father, that you'd help me deal with my anger and my resentment. And I pray, Father, that you'd set me free from holding a grudge. And I pray, God, that you would help me to not just be forgiven, but to forgive as well. I accept you as my Savior, and I want you to be my Lord. And I ask, Lord, that you'd lead my life. I pray, Father, you'd give me a hunger for your word. I pray you'd gather around me godly people that will help me in my journey with you. And I pray, Father, that you would set me free and make me your child. I love you, Jesus. It's in your name we pray. Everybody said, amen, amen.